Hi everyone and welcome to another Pi Chat Live. My name is Kim Martin. I'm a senior reporter here at the Pi and I'm delighted to be joined today by Devina Sivagurunathan, who is the Executive Director of the global education consultancy MABECS Global. Thank you so much for joining us, Devina.
Thanks for having me. It's really nice to be here.
So I'll let Davina give a nice kind of overview of MABECS and MABECS Global and a brief brief history into the organisation in just 1 second. But I'll just say that we're really happy to have you here today because I know that you're really well placed to give a really nice overview and insights into how demand is evolving from Malaysian students, the kind of top destinations preferred by students there. And I know we've got lots of universities here today who are really eager to hear your perspective on how they can kind of effectively engage with the region. So, a reminder to our audience, this is a live webinar. So, I can see lots of you letting us know where you are in the world, which is great. I'm in sunny South London today, and Davina is in KL, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Perfect.
Where we've had an insane thunderstorm, as we tend to do every evening. But yeah, no, it's super great to be here. Really lovely to see such an interesting mixed group of people kind of coming in and saying hi from different parts of the world. Very happy that everyone's interested to hear about Malaysia as well. So my name is Devina. I'm the Executive Director of MABECS Global. Just a little bit of background on MABECS. MABECS is probably, I mean, we love to say that we're probably one of the first education agencies in the world because we were set up in 1985. And at the last British Council conference, when they were talking about kind of research on education agencies, they didn't go as far back as 1985. They were sort of thinking that agencies started in the 1990s, but no, we were there in 1985, and primarily until 2018 recruited to the UK, so exclusively to UK institutions for a very, very long time, and have been very successful in our UK recruitment activities. I think we've probably sent between 20 to 25,000 students to the UK over the course of these years. I myself am Malaysian, but lived and worked in the UK for a long time. And after Brexit, I decided to come back to Malaysia and kind of took on this role as executive director. And one of the things that kind of concerned me was how all our eggs were in one basket, which is the UK, and Brexit had sort of changed the game a little bit. So we really looked at engaging with partners in other parts of the world. So we set up MABECS Global just before COVID, great timing, towards the end of 2019. But in that time, it has given us the opportunity to think about the different countries that we can engage with, what the opportunities are in each country, and how they might kind of fit in with what the market is looking for here in Malaysia. So I guess I just want to say heads up, we will be sharing a deck which you can obtain at the end of the presentation, where we've done a bit of analysis on the different kind of key markets. I call them the Anglo markets because it's English speaking countries, and where Malaysia fits in terms of the landscape of student recruitment into these countries. But that's the overview. And yeah, Kim, kind of take it away. Ask me whatever you want to ask me.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I've got lots of questions for you, but just to let our audience know, they can also put their own questions to you. So there's a Q&A tab, and you can also upvote your favorite questions. So feel free to do that. I guess let's just get into it. Can you tell us kind of what are the most popular destinations for Malaysians at the moment, and kind of any trends you've noticed in terms of destination, program type, etc.?
So, the UK remains the biggest player in the market, followed very, very closely by Australia. So it's no surprise. I think, most people kind of looking at this will be aware that the UK, because of its kind of long-standing links with Malaysia, because of the way our education system is set up, it still remains a preferred destination for a lot of Malaysians. Australia remains the another preferred destination because of its proximity to Malaysia. But nonetheless, we're seeing some changes in terms of students thinking of other destinations. So, for example, we've been doing a bit more work into looking into what opportunities there may be for Malaysian students in North America. So there's some interest in the US and Canada, but again, it's a bit more complex and requires a bit more work just because the education systems are not a natural fit. And a lot of Malaysians kind of think, oh my goodness, it's really far away. So there's some sort of groundwork to be done around kind of growing that. But also within the Australia, New Zealand markets, what we're starting to notice is that within the middle income communities in Malaysia, who maybe in the past wouldn't have been able to afford to go abroad, there are opportunities to recruit within the kind of TVET and TAFE space. So there's some interest in those areas. And we can see that in certain parts of the country, mainly in East Malaysia, but also in Southern Malaysia and parts of Kuala Lumpur, Klang Valley, there's a growing interest within the middle income communities for their children to go and study abroad, but in looking for more affordable options. In terms of subject areas, I mean, look, there's no surprises here. It will be mainly STEM. A third of all applications that we send are for engineering. I also, I used to work at MABECS many years ago when I was a youth. And one of the biggest subject areas in 2001, when I worked there before, was accounting and finance. And then, I go away and I come back in 2017 and people are still applying for accounting and finance. So always like wonder how many accountants we need in Malaysia, but apparently a lot. So yeah, I would say STEM followed closely by economics, management, and a growing interest in, well, this is an interesting one, computer science. We obviously saw a huge uptick during COVID because people saw the value of kind of online engagements, etc. But that's kind of, tapered down back into, the regular numbers. But yeah, those are the subject areas, I would say.
Okay, that's really interesting. And I know that you have a lot of insights from kind of international schools there as well. Is there any trends you're seeing there that you can share with us at all?
So Malaysia has a huge number of international schools, and it's a growing space. Um, I I mean, it's complex to me as a Malaysian because I feel a little bit sad that there's been this shift towards doing an overseas syllabus versus sticking in the Malaysian school system. But yeah, so that's the big change in the trend, I would say, in the last sort of 10 to 15 years, where more and more parents, if they can afford it, are sending their kids to international schools. So we have a broad range of international schools from, kind of branch campuses like Epsom, Marlborough College, but also at Charterhouse, they have a campus here in KL, but also a range of sort of less expensive Malaysian brand international and private schools. So MABECS has historically worked very, very closely with these private and international schools where we kind of go in at a pretty early stage in the students' kind of thought process. We tend to go in when they're about 16, 17, begin to have those conversations around, okay, what it is you might want to study. If you're thinking about this destination, what do you need to start thinking about? We run test prep workshops. We work with students on preparing for interviews, etc. But the international school scene is where I think if you're looking to recruit full-time undergraduate students, that really is where your market is. And anyone who's done any work in Malaysia will know that it is a sort of 80-90% undergraduate market, was still quite small numbers, small but growing numbers for postgrad, but it's still mainly an undergraduate market.
Okay, it's really interesting. And so I know that a lot of our audience that are here today are from universities, and a kind of topic that comes up time and time again is diversification. So I wonder if there's anything you can say about, do young Malaysians, do prospective Malaysian students, is there an opportunity there for universities to diversify? And what is that opportunity?
Yeah, so Malaysia again is an interesting place for a number of reasons. I used to get asked a lot, oh, are you Malaysian? You don't look Malaysian. And that's because they may have met someone Malaysian who is Chinese or Malay or from a tribal community in Sabah, Sarawak. And so Malaysia is a very diverse and multicultural place if you
Mm.
haven't been before. Sorry if it sounds like I'm being, trying to teach about Malaysian culture. Actually, I'm not sorry. Let me tell you, we are a multicultural place. But also, what is interesting about Malaysia is that it is a regional hub for education. So a lot of the private international schools that I talked about, especially the boarding schools, they have large cohorts of students that come in from other parts of ASEAN and other parts of Asia. So in choosing to recruit from Malaysia, you will get students who are domiciled in Malaysia who aren't just Malaysians. So you will be able to gain access to students from a range of countries. So, for example, one of our partner schools, Epsom College, they have a large number of students from East Asia, so students from Japan and Korea. We also have a large expat community from Japan and Korea based here in KL. So you'll find that their kids are also at international schools in Malaysia. So really, in terms of diversity, you'll get a very interesting mix of students, a lot of whom, for whom English is their first language, but like most Malaysians will speak two or three different languages. So, I think we bring a special mix to a university classroom, that sort of diversity. And it's interesting because, in the last 2 years, as we've been allowed out of the country post COVID, and as I've attended conferences and traveled to visit universities, there have been so many conversations, regardless of where in the world I am, about the importance of diversity for a lot of universities. And I think, if you sort of commit to Malaysia, you can be guaranteed diversity for sure.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned about Malaysia kind of positioning itself as a global education hub. Should that worry any universities abroad? Is that going to kind of have an impact on demand for overseas education as Malaysians are really being offered kind of high quality educational opportunities at home?
It's such an interesting and important question, and it's something that we've been thinking about as well as an organization, right? Like how how are things going to change as Malaysians consider more options here in Malaysia? In the past, the only options really were, let's say, studying at a public university, a state university in Malaysia, or doing some kind of TNE program where you spend some time here and some time abroad. Or, Malaysia was one of the pioneers of the 3+0 option. We have tons of branch campuses. So I think that yes, there will be an impact, and we are starting to see an impact. But I think that there's also always going to be this slice of society that recognizes the value of studying abroad, whether that means being able to afford the full 3, 4, 5 years, whatever, or whether it means, oh, I would maybe like to start my degree at, a local university, a private university, or maybe I want to finish my degree there, then I want to consider postgrad opportunities. Or, and one of the things that I think it is becoming increasingly common in conversation pieces is study abroad, because
Mm.
Malaysian universities, especially the private universities, are looking for study abroad partners. Now, I say this not because it has any great value to us as an organization, but I think from a university perspective, I think there are now enough universities here in Malaysia that would be interested in partnering up with institutions in the UK, in the US, Australia, etc., where they would love a study abroad option or an exchange option. So those are the kinds of opportunities that you can think about beyond that kind of direct recruitment, as well. But also the TNE piece remains, right? That's not
Yeah.
really changed that much. I was at a conference last week at Sunway University, and it was fascinating. There was a lot of chat around TNE and what has changed and what hasn't changed. And one of the things that one of my heroes, Professor Dr. Elizabeth Lee, who is one of the big cheeses at Sunway University. I love her. I think she's great. She was saying, like, as much as Malaysia is trying to position itself as a global hub, like with most countries, there's a disconnect between what's being said in the education space versus what the immigration people want to do, right? So, there's still that, we still haven't quite figured out that piece around immigration, around talent retention. But also, I think Malaysians, we're generally quite global. So if there's a chance to go abroad, even if it's, like I said, for a study abroad opportunity, or if it's for, your full degree, if people can afford it, I think they'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I completely agree with you there. I visited KL a few months ago and also visited Sunway, and kind of staying on that TNE piece. So as you said, Malaysia was kind of an early adapter of TNE and has proven that it can do it really well. Do you think the demand is there? Is that continuing to grow?
I think so. I think that if there's still opportunities to have good local partners where you can successfully, run TNE programs. I think I don't know, it'll be interesting to hear from some of our American colleagues who are in the webinar around how successful you've been with your American degree program recruitment. So one of the difficulties we face as an organization trying to grow and develop our North American market is that most Malaysians, when they think about going to the US, they will do something called the American Degree Transfer Program. There are a couple of private colleges here that run this, where you can do your freshman and your sophomore year in Malaysia and then transfer off for your junior and senior year. So, and it's not like they're not transferring to good institutions. They are, right? And then they're saving that cost. I suppose it's a bit like comparing it to doing part of your degree at a community college and then going on to a university. So that from our perspective, that's great, but it completely we're not really involved in that, right? And that's fine, but I think universities should really think about being in partnership with colleges and schools that offer that, because I think you will get good quality students through that. But I also think there is a space for direct recruitment into freshman year. There will always be students who are looking for that. So we just started working. It's been 1 year since we started working with the University of Toronto. We've just been like the first kind of recruitment cycle with them. And that's been so interesting for us. And I feel like Malaysian students don't really know that much about Canada. Of course, everyone knows U of T, but it's still been that process of talking to students, convincing them of the value of going to Canada. And so it's been an interesting year. So in the last sort of like 12 months, so we're looking at this September, having worked with U of T for one recruitment cycle, we've now got 15 students looking to go in September, provided, the grades and the visas and all of that. But, the 15 students who've confirmed. So I think that in that relationship building with the schools, U of T coming out regularly, going in, meeting with the guidance counselors, and then us being there to take all the questions once the reps have left. I think that's worked really well. So yeah, I think that there are opportunities for direct recruitment if that's what you want. But equally,
Perfect.
I do think that TNE thing, like don't miss out on that either.
Okay. And so you mentioned your partnerships with University of Toronto. So can you tell us a bit more about the kind of the benefits for both the student and the universities of the partnerships that you've been undertaking since 2019 with MABECS Global?
Yeah, so let me just say it was a very slow burn when we started MABECS Global. I think most people were like, wait, what? Don't you just do the UK? Like, what are you doing? And of course it was difficult because it was COVID, so we couldn't really travel or go anywhere or do anything really. And it was hard to, I mean, look, guys, I used to work at a university. I too got a lot of cold emails from agents going, hello, would you like to be my, can we be your agent? So I get it. A lot of people just ignored my emails and it's fine, not bitter. And so what I found was that in kind of going out to uh, conferences like API and NAFSA, I then really had the opportunity to have FaceTime with university representatives and kind of talk to them about the possibilities of working with us. And I think U of T is a really good example of an institution that just took a chance with us. They could see our track record for the UK was good. And so in the last sort of 12 months, we've really collaborated with them to come up with, a series of activities over the course of the year where, we've been consistent with the right schools. So not this kind of scattergun approach of like, let's visit all the schools everywhere all the time. No, so we've not done that. So it's been a combination of running social media campaigns that are effective, ensuring regular visits to the right schools and colleges, and then making sure that the students know that we are here in KL to help them if they need assistance with applications, with visas, any questions about, the application essay, that kind of stuff. And then U of T have been amazing in kind of running these sessions at the schools where they're giving very clear guidance on what it is they're looking for. So I think that's worked a treat because, going back to what I said before, sometimes with the US and Canada, especially, Malaysians have no idea how to put in a good application for the US and Canada. And even with my team. So I'm very fortunate that one of our counselors is a U of T graduate. So that helps, right? So she knows what needs to be done. But for our team, it's been a steep learning curve when most of us have come from this kind of UK background. And we spent the last sort of 2 years trying to understand what it is that we should be saying to students, how it is we should be helping students to ensure that, yes, okay, we know this is how you wrote your UK personal statement, but this isn't going to fly if you're applying to, U of T. Because another partner that we recently, like super recently signed with is UC Davis. And, we're kind of trying to work with them around this idea of getting Malaysian students to understand the UC system, but also getting Malaysian students to understand that, doing the community college way of getting into a university is not a bad thing. The American degree program is not a bad thing. Because I think UC Davis, big brand name, and students kind of think, oh, I don't know if I can do that. It seems really complicated. But just trying to educate them that there are various paths and various ways into good universities in the US. Because US universities are very, I think Malaysian students, like, just apart from knowing the Ivy Leagues and maybe some of the UCs, most people have very little understanding for US universities. I will not claim that I know a lot. And so for us, it's also a learning curve. So we're trying to find like partners that are willing to work with us on that basis, that it's we're learning, you're learning. We'll teach you about Malaysia, you teach us about the US, and then let's go, that sort of thing.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely a collaborative effort. I should say if anyone's interested in partnering with MABECS Global, they can click the kind of green flashing button, and I'm sure there's contact information there. They can get in touch with you and start something exciting. I'm going to go to this audience question because it kind of ties in with what my next question was going to be. So Sophia's asking, what are some student recruitment strategies that you can recommend? So I was going to ask a similar question, just kind of what advice would you have to universities about engaging with Malaysian students or recruitment?
So Malaysia is a very mature market. So Malaysian students have been going abroad for years and years and years, right? And a lot of the students that we meet now, their parents would have studied abroad. Some of them, their grandparents would have studied abroad, right? So they're not looking for basic information anymore. Like I keep saying to universities, coming in with your, let me introduce you to University of X, and then have the same deck that everyone else has and saying the same, we're ranked 27th in the whatever. I mean, they can get that information anywhere, right? So really it's about your USPs, and you need to know what those are. Like I sometimes feel universities are not always sure what their USPs are because it's complex. And I'm not blaming the universities. I'm just saying like sometimes you got to figure out what it is that's special about your institution. So we had an institution visit us yesterday, and we were trying to kind of say, maybe the story here is the fact that you're a collegiate university. Let's explain to students what that means, right? And tell them that story. So I find with students, storytelling really, really works. So you can't just, yeah. So which is why if you look at the kind of content that we're putting out, whether it's on our social media or whether when we go into our partner schools, because remember I said earlier, we run a range of programs at the schools. It really is everything from the initial point of contact of like, what do you want? So we're redesigning our website at the moment, talking about student recruitment strategies. We're redesigning our website at the moment, and we're going to have a whole section now on what type of personality are you, and what does that mean in terms of what you could possibly consider at university? It's not like a careers test, like, you like these three things, so you should be a banker. It's not like that. And because we're Malaysian, we've made it about food. So apparently, if you're reliable, you're roti canai. If anyone's had roti canai, yeah, means you're reliable. Anyway, so it's stuff like that. So we're constantly innovating, and we're having to think creatively because students they expect that. The run-of-the-mill stuff just isn't working. So for us, we've also recently developed a program that we're running with our partner schools called SCAPE, which is a super curriculum program. And so this is something that's open to our partner universities to be part of, where it has three streams. So science and engineering, no surprises, maths, but also kind of arts and humanities, and also the biological sciences, allied health professions, etc. And so for that, we're seeking assistance from our partner universities to cover topics in those areas. So it's a good opportunity for you to raise your profile. So in terms of student recruitment strategies, I think really think big, think creatively. You can't be doing what everyone else is doing, which is why, we feel that the usual stuff just isn't going to work. So we would love to work with you to creatively come up with a plan that works for your institution, because we've realized that kind of one size fits all just isn't going to fly anymore, because students are too sophisticated. And they can literally get information from anywhere. So one of our videos went viral recently because we did a compare and contrast. Which is easier to get? Is it easier to get into Oxbridge or easier to get Taylor Swift tickets for Singapore? People loved it. The people absolutely loved it. But it was just a really interesting way to get students to think about, okay, so you think you want to apply to Oxbridge. Do you know what it takes? So just stuff like that.
Okay. And are there any other kind of common pitfalls that you see universities falling into when trying to engage with Malaysian universities? Anything that you can share and kind of warn our audience here today not to do?
This doesn't just apply to Malaysia, okay? This applies to like any country in the world that you're going to go and recruit from. Consistency is the key. So sometimes for us, it's like we're super happy to support any of our partners. We would love to work with you, but please don't just show up like once a year and expect us to send you 20 students. Like I said, with University of Toronto, it's taken this year. We've been super consistent. They've been super consistent, and in that's translated to 15 students. And we'll see in September, but I'm just saying, like, we're at a point now where it's looking like we've got 15 students we're going to go. So that's exciting, right? And consistency is the key. Another, our UK partner that we just have had this brilliant, consistent relationship with for since 1985 is the University of Manchester. Because people always say, oh, why is Manchester so popular? Okay, they do have two great football teams, but it's also that in Malaysia, they've been super consistent. Like, they come out here several times a year. They have now got a local rep. And that's it. And they have plenty of engagement from academics. So that's the other key, consistency, and make sure your academics are engaged, involved, interested. Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to take some more audience questions now because we only have a couple of minutes left. So quickly, someone has asked, will the event be recorded for viewing afterwards? Yes, it will. You can watch this anytime on demand afterwards. Paloma is asking, are you seeing a rise in demand for creative courses or non-traditional courses? I know you mentioned those kind of traditional courses at the beginning, but anything you can add there?
So we are finding, interestingly, for the creative arts, it's mainly postgraduate courses where students are going on to do postgraduate courses to upskill. And to be honest, I think also look for opportunities to work abroad. I think the creative industries in Malaysia is still a little bit, behind. And so I think there's still a sense that if they can do a master's and then get some work experience in the UK, US, whatever. I think there's definitely a space for that. We work with UAL, University of the Arts London, and we definitely have seen a very interesting uptake in PGT, across a range of subjects, everything from interior design to illustration. There'll always be fashion applicants, but the this year we got a couple for costume design. We've got a couple across other institutions for music. So small numbers,
Okay.
but it's there. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Next question is from Amy, and she's asking, are you experiencing any visa delays or sticking points into Australia at present?
Yes. Obs, like everybody else. Yes, Amy, absolutely. I mean, we were literally talking about this today at our team huddle. We had one student who it took 50 days for her visa to come through, and she was going to study medicine at the University of Tasmania. So it's not like, it, it just felt really strange. Like everything was in order. Yeah, we I think it's hard because we don't know, um we can't predict outcomes, which is very different for us, for our UK students, or even the US students that we've sent in the last kind of year or so. Um, you know, it's very clear what the turnaround times will be. As long as you've got all the bits of paperwork, pretty much guaranteed to get your visa. Sticking points with Australia, yeah, absolutely. Just that lack of certainty around, will they get it? Won't they get it? How long will it take? So the student actually missed the first couple of weeks of medical school, which I think is,
Yeah.
not cool. Yeah.
Yeah, no, not at all. All right. Let me see. We've got a question from Barbara, and she's asking, do you work with the British Council in Malaysia?
Yes, we have a good working relationship with the British Council in Malaysia. I was on a panel at the British Council conference in KL in February. They often reach out to us, and we reach out to them if there are any kind of, issues happening on the UK HE scene. So yeah, very good open communications with the British Council, with the British High Commission. Yeah, it's good.
Okay. And we are out of time, but I'm gonna give you one more. So we've got Adrian who's asking, hi Davina, what do you think of the pathway market in Malaysia over the next 5 years?
Hello, Adrian. It's a very interesting question because it is something that comes up a lot in the schools that we work with. So the schools that we work with, the international schools, they're primarily offering A levels or IB. Some of them are offering maybe Canadian, like Ontario certificate, or the South Australian matriculation. Now, what the schools are finding is that with the IGCSE students in particular, because a lot of pathway providers now accept students directly into a pathway from IGCSE, provided they've met the entry qualifications, a lot of students are thinking, oh, this is a route that I can take because it means I don't have to do A levels. I don't have to spend 18 months or 2 years uh, doing a pre-university qualification. So long answer short, I think there is a growing market for pathway providers. And it's I don't know if it will ever be like huge numbers, but I think it's growing. We can see it because we can see that downward trend in A levels with a lot of the schools that we work with. And it is a concern that the schools have raised with us.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. Well, I know that it's getting late where you are, so we'll leave it there. We could talk about this for hours, I think. But I know that you've kindly put together a kind of deck, so we'll send that with kind of information on trends and challenges and things like that. So we'll send that out to everyone who's signed up to this webinar. And a big thank you to our audience for tuning in. And thank you so much, Devina. It's been really nice to chat to you. Thanks so much for all your insights.
Thank you. And I just want to say to anyone who's going to be at NAFSA, I'll be there too. So hopefully we can kind of have a chat whilst I'm there if you're interested in collaborating with us and also thinking about doing any work in Malaysia. Super happy to help. Just ping me. It'd be great to see you. Thanks, everyone.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much.